Yeah, no, this is good though. This is a good transition to China. Because something we want to talk about today is China. China, I don't know if you heard, but China has a 2049 plan. Is they want to be the world's biggest superpower by 2049, and they're obviously working to do so as we speak. How are they rising to global dominance?
I don't know about that.
You
That's
think
not happening.
you think they're not going to become the next United States in terms of global dominance?
Not if it's up to us, bro. Not if it's up to us. No.
Well, Joe Biden is
That ain't
kind of
happening.
Joe
If
Biden's
Governor Greg
take.
Abbott becomes president,
Oh yeah,
in
or
his
DeSantis.
in his wheelchair, he'll tell China to go himself, man. In his wheelchair, he'll be like, "What? What?
Like,
Jinping? What?"
it'll be like
And then his
FDR.
glasses will flop down just like that, you know.
Yeah.
I
Well,
like
okay.
Greg Abbott, man. He had an awesome video interview the other day, a press conference on the border, by the way. FYI, man. It's really cool. You should watch it.
That's our next episode. We're talking about the border. But China obviously, we know about the virus. We know how much they've infiltrated the World Health Organization, and we know how they have a hold on big pharma. We know how they have a hold on medical equipment internationally. We know how they steal intellectual property all over the world, and that's how they save on research and development. They just infiltrate universities all over the Western world. So yeah, how are they still, did I miss anything? How are they still gaining power all over the world?
China?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we need to start from ground zero. Okay. China has been working with the United States since what, the late 1970s, early 1980s. And that's
Late
when
60s.
Carter pulled them out of. Well, no. It was when Carter pulled them out of their world isolation in 1979. Is when China actually took a world presence, and then that's really when Taiwan was kind of isolated, because Taiwan and China have always been kind of against each other. So you need to look at it kind of geopolitically, where because China was trying to push this one China policy where like all of the Asian land in that area was theirs. In 1979, when Carter went and said, okay, yeah, we agree, Taiwan is yours. When that happened, China was like, we love you, United States. And they became like kind of like groveling buddies to us. But we didn't realize though at the time, it was all a facade, dude. They got something out of it where we gave them Taiwan. We gave them the world rights to say that, you know, that Taiwan is not its own nation, and that Taiwan is not allowed in the UN and the World Council, etc. And then because of that, over the years, we thought now China was our friend because we did something nice for them. Over the years, China treated it well. Keep your enemies close. Your friends close. Your enemies closer. Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's what China did to us. And then over the years, they basically just plummeted and looted our coffers in trade wars and tariff imbalances because of the NAFTA, because of Hillary Clinton. And well, I say Hillary Clinton, but I say Bill Clinton, but it's really Hillary Clinton. The reason why is because I think the entire time Clinton has been in office, even since his local days, Hillary was in the black background with her like puppet strings, you know. And I don't know if you've ever seen that TV show with Kevin Spacey, House of Cards.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Netflix. I think it's a Netflix series, dude. That's like Hillary and Bill Clinton, bro. If you've ever really watched the entire series, they were out for a purpose, man, for blood and money and power. And they saw that with China, allying with China over the years, it would help them. So of course they allowed NAFTA to really kind of pull China into our economic circle, thus kicking all of our American labor jobs out of the United States and into Chinese labor camps, into Mexican warehouses where they make like $2 an hour, so now we look at ourselves with China now, where after years of Henry Kissinger doing their bidding for them, after years of the NBA slowly starting to succumb to their powers because they're the ones donating and giving them the most money, now we're finding ourselves with like a frenemy, I guess is what you want to call it, right?
Yeah, that's
like,
accurate.
like a frenemy state. Like in Australia, I mean, they're, God bless them, they see China for what it is, and they're the only ones really saying anything, dude. Like they're the only country in the whole world.
Yeah, they have to,
saying
because
anything.
the South China Sea is right above them, and China's encroaching.
I never thought of it that way. I never thought of it for that reason.
Yeah, they're pretty
I
close.
wondered why they were like so adamantly hating each other, man. That's it didn't even occur to me, because I know that Australia from the United States is like an 18-hour flight.
Yeah.
It's like a ridiculous flight.
Yeah, China's consistently doing naval stuff right off the Australian coasts.
Trying to pop up my Google Drive, man. Just give me a minute, dude.
Yeah, no worries. Just to bridge this gap, talking about China for a bit. China also became a global superpower because they hoard themselves out to the world with their labor force. Famously, there's a factory in China called Foxconn in a tech city of theirs called Shenzhen, which has 450,000 employees working under one roof. And all they do for 18 hours straight is they assemble phones, and on average, the suicide rate in Foxconn is 2 people a day. So, yes, these working conditions are not foreign to China. And China is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, yet still considers themselves a third world country. And that's how they get away with a lot of this malpractice of human rights. And
on that note,
yeah.
I'll go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
No, I was just gonna say on that note, and see, that's kind of what's at play here, is that because of their careless and reckless actions towards the environment, towards international law, towards property rights, towards morality, man, these people are, God bless my Chinese friends, man, because they're Chinese Americans, so they understand freedom, they understand, civil liberties and privacy and human rights and dignity, man. I don't know what the heck, bro. Like, after the Japanese invaded China in the early 1940s, late 1930s, I really strongly believe, dude, and I've run this by my Asian friends, and you and I have talked about this before, that like it took China for a turn for the worse, man. So now what we see is, because they're so gung-ho about making more money, and because of their exponential rise on the world stage, economically, financially, militarily, basically that's it. Those are the top 4. Because of that, they're getting the high of like, I want more, we can get more, we can make more, we can have more. And in doing so, their selfishness and greed is allowing for an influx of material and property, or material usage and product creation on the world market. Because now not only is there regulation with certain companies of how many components they can make or build or solder or whatever, the Chinese are just cranking this stuff out like it's like bubble gum, dude. And well, what ends up happening when you do things at a high rate or in high numbers,
Frequency, yeah.
the productivity level and the quality decreases. Well, what happens when quality decreases on an electronics product? You end up throwing it out, right? I mean, when you end up throwing it out, you can't repair everything, because a lot of times when you repair something, it's actually more money to repair it than to just replace it. And that's
Yeah.
where the laws back on the East Coast of right to repair exist, because they're
Mhm.
finding out that, like, Apple, for example, charges $1,000 to fix a laptop of theirs, when you could take it to a guy around the corner and he could replace it for you because he knows how to do it. But because there are certain parts and certain little pieces in there that you can't touch, and if you do, it destroys the software, then it screws the entire replacement process up. Well, what's happening in China is that they've found a way around it by literally with blueprinting machines and just thousands of miles of baskets of electronics that you can just pick through in Shenzhen, the city of Shenzhen, for example. They can just make stuff in mass product and ship it out to the world as if it's like an Apple product or a Sony product or a Reebok, and they get away with it. They get away with it, and then because the quality is so bad, the buyer ends up throwing it out. Right? There's instability on the market, confidence drops for that company, and now all these suckers in China are making money. Excuse my language, man.
I'll
All
beat
these
that.
guys, all these people in China are making money, and at the same time adding some more compost on the world garbage pile. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, it's a severe issue. It's not just monetarily, it's not just poverty wise, it's not just intellectual property. The environmental impact of what China is doing, it's not just in the air and in the form of pollution, or in water in the form of like trash and plastic. It's also in the form of like landfills, dude, of these people literally just cranking out crap product and then having it thrown out 3 months later. They were so proud of themselves, the Chinese, about how amazing the city of Shenzhen is, how wonderful it is, how much they've brought people up from the poverty pockets of the underbellies of the world. While at the same time, have you seen the way China is? The viruses that come out of their country, the pollution that comes out of their country, the disease that comes out of their country. It's like a cesspool.
Yeah, I can
China and
yeah,
India are
yeah.
both cesspools.
Yeah, I can comment on China because I actually in 2009 I was there for a month, and there's two blatant observations that were very clear to me the second I got off that plane into Beijing. One was the value of life is not like that you see in the Western world, like in the United States,
Non-existent.
non-existent. That's right.
Non-existent.
And on
Non-existent, man.
day one in China, I see construction on buildings happening, and people are just standing with like maybe a foot of room at the edge of a building, just hammering on top of a building 20 stories up, but he doesn't have a harness or anything. And you have dozens of people just walking around up there without any safety. Um,
Wow,
and the
man. Really?
yeah, yeah. And the other thing too you see is lack of hygiene. There are signs in Beijing that is like of a child like squatting with like an X on it, because in Beijing you're not allowed to pee in the streets. But you go outside the city, into other cities, and you see people shitting and peeing in the streets everywhere. Like you're driving down the street
Oh
and
my God.
people just
What?
squatting on the ground, peeing on the ground because there isn't running water all over the cities, which I would consider second world. Um, and
Wow, man.
and this is yeah,
Meanwhile, these people are bragging about their technology and their big skyscraper cities. That's crazy.
yeah, and environment
They are
wise,
so, I mean, the
yeah,
spectrum in China is like bottom feeder poor
right, yeah,
to like prisoners being tortured and raped,
yeah,
to to technology booms, to high skyscraper first world cities. That's a huge disparity, man, in
yeah.
that country,
There's
man.
two more points I want to make. Well, one on China. You mentioned environment too. They are the biggest polluters in the world by far, not even close. Even with India, which has a very close population, China has
Horrible.
by far the worst pollution in the world. If you look at the world pollution map, it's all coming out of China. At least half the pollution in the world seems to be coming out of China. And then when I say stuff like there's people peeing everywhere in the streets, sometimes I get the response like, well, they're a third world country. Both they're a third world country. They have first world money with third world treatment of their people. And I've been to other places in the world. Last year, well, actually 2019, I was in Ethiopia, a country much poorer than China, a literal third world country, and there weren't people peeing in the streets everywhere. There were, like, I didn't see a single actually that's not true. I saw a single person peeing in the street in Ethiopia, but it wasn't like it was in China where it was like every other block you'd see someone peeing. It's there's this disconnect that happens among Chinese people of like hygiene and cleanliness, because there's trash everywhere. They have the money for infrastructure, they're just not investing in it. Where's all the money going is what I'm wondering honestly about China. China-wise, you mentioned what's disgusting is so many people enable crimes from happening, and your immigration example is important because we're letting it happen. But something that the whole world is letting happen is China is openly putting people in concentration camps, and the media just this year started talking about the Uyghur concentration camps. Those have been going on for years, and me as an activist have known about China's concentration camps for people even practicing Christianity for years, because my pastor's brother used to be a missionary over here, but under Jinping, since he ramped it up, he had to run home back to the United States because they started really wrangling people up. So China is seriously going after everyone now who doesn't kiss the feet of Jinping. And who are the what's the other group? Falun? I can't pronounce the name. Falun Gong.
Falun Gong.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I first learned about Falun Gong when I was at the Santa Monica Pier like 2 or 3 years ago. Like when I was there and we were walking down the sidewalk right there next to all the restaurants and stuff. Are you familiar with Santa Monica?
Yeah,
I'm sure you remember.
Mm-hmm.
It's where you can like overlook the balcony, the beach, and there's
the
nice
zigzag up, and then
it was right there. So there was a whole entire, maybe about 30 yards worth of huge, like 5 foot by 5 foot or 4 foot by 5 foot, 4 foot by 4 foot placards with like images on them of the Falun Gong practice and what they like, actual images of what they're doing to them. Graphic, actual images of the experimentation they're doing. And I was like, holy, what the? I started walking. I'm like, dude. And then because I was with some girl, like, I didn't want to sit there and learn. Like, I just wanted to go and kind of be with her because I knew that she wasn't. And plus, that's graphic. Girls don't like that stuff. You already know this, man.
Yeah.
And, well, the cool girls do. They're interested in that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But like most girls, especially Los Angeles, are just like, oh, that's too graphic. Can we just go eat some pizza? Like, so we ended up leaving. But like, ever since then, it bothered me that I didn't stay there and read it and learn more about it and jump into that activism, because it oh man, it hit me hard when I saw this, dude. I learned about this years ago before Epic Times really like brought this out into the fold. Like, you know, it's because of Epic Times that really the world knows more about it now. Mm-hmm. We got to be frank. Mm-hmm. It's because of them and NTD, their sister station. But so now that we're all talking about the Uyghurs in China and Falun Gong is out in the open, it bothers me that still people don't talk about it. Like, is it because the name is too confusing to say? Is it because they're not Christians? What do you think it is?
Politically, obviously the people in power right now are trying to push it aside. Just by example, Joe Biden, when he was asked about it in his town hall, he did his third week in office. He was specifically asked by Anderson Cooper about the Uyghurs. And he said, well, you know, China just has their cultural differences or whatever. And he dismissed it. And
what about the Uyghurs? What about human rights abuses?
We must speak up for human rights. It's who we are. We can't. My comment to him was, And I know him well, and he knows me well. We're a 2-hour conversation.
You talked about this to him.
I talked about this too. And that's not so much refugee, but I talked about it. I said, look, you know, Chinese leaders, if you know anything about Chinese history, it has always been the time when China has been victimized by the outer world is when they haven't been unified at home. So the central, to vastly overstated, the central principle of Xi Jinping is that there must be a united, tightly controlled China. And he uses his rationale for the things he does based on that. I point out to him, no American president can be sustained as a president if he doesn't reflect the values of the United States. And so the idea, I'm not going to speak out against what he's doing in Hong Kong, what he's doing with the Uyghurs in western mountains of China, and Taiwan trying to end the one China policy by making it forceful. I said, and by the he said he gets it. Culturally, there are different norms at each country, and their leaders are expected to follow.
You talked to him, though, about human rights abuses. Is that as far as it goes in terms of the U.S., or is there any actual repercussions for China?
Well, there will be repercussions for China, and he knows that. What I'm doing is making clear that we, in fact, are going to continue to reassert our role as spokespersons for human rights at the UN and other agencies that have an impact on their attitude. China is trying very hard to become the world leader. And to get that moniker and to be able to do that, they have to gain the confidence of other countries. And as long as they're engaged in activity that is contrary to basic human rights, it's going to be hard for them to do that. But it's much more complicated now. I shouldn't have tried to talk China policy in 10 minutes on television.
I mean, imagine if you're like a Uyghur in the United States who escaped and like you have family over there dying, and you hear the president of the United States dismiss genocide so passively. So two things. One, obviously, people in power are like pushing it aside because China's influence. And also the media isn't doing their due diligence of spreading the word on it. It was happening under Trump. There were a couple packages out of like the BBC that came out, and NBC had a good piece on it. But once Biden took power, media blackout and the whole thing. It's just it's the job of us activists to kind of spread the news on it right now.
Yep. On that note, I think we should call it a show.
Yep.
But yeah, man. Next episode is going to be on immigration, and
yeah, catch us right here. Website in the description below. See you guys in the next one. Cool.